is important to understand. That the West was in many ways a lucky beneficiary of the collapse of the Roman Empire. It bequested the West with certain tools, whether it's a canon law, whether it's which in turn transferred into civil law and a contractual law, whether it was division into small dioceses, which used to be provinces of Roman Empire, which in turn evolved into various states that could never quite dominate each other. It never really get to the stage that one of those little pieces managed to dominate. And so there was a great deal of competition for ideas, for wealth, for money, for technology. And all of that competition led to gradual opening up. And what the book is discussing, there were certain turning points. One of the turning points clearly were the Mongols. Mongols unquestionably in the 13th century reshaped completely China, Middle East, what is effectively Turkey now. Russia essentially is the successor state of the Mongol Empire. They never really gone beyond Poland and Hungary. They did defeat Polish and Hungarian kings, but they never really gone beyond that. And so you can argue that the West was spared, not just destructions that Mongols have brought about, but also types of institutions and habits that Mongols brought with them. And so that was the first major turning point. It would be interesting to see what Europe would have looked like if Mongols did go beyond Poland and Hungary. The second one clearly was the Black Death. If you think of different places around the world, Europe just had a little bit more of urbanization in the 14th century. As I said, the princes, the royalties were somewhat less powerful. The guilds were developing. So you find some of the artisans were a little bit more powerful. And so when population was decimated across the entire Eurasia, in Russia, it created serfdom. In Russia, you need to pin down people because land was a lot less valuable than few individuals that were actually residing on that land. But in the West, it actually created an open labor market, whereby where your guilds or where your town people or your landowners, you were competing for labor. So that was your second major point. And the third one leading into is Renaissance and basically rediscovery of the ancients. And to me, those three things created a much more flexible economies, much more flexible societies. And whenever you have more flexible societies, that means the periods of contraction tend to be shallower, and the period of growth tends to be faster. Now, to begin with, it doesn't make much difference. But when you go century after century, it all accumulates. And as most visitors back even in the 18th century already saw that both Ottomans as well as the Chinese were falling further and further behind. So it wasn't just it happened right now, it was happening over centuries. But by early 19th century, really, the gap was completely unbridgeable. So the secret source or the secret formula of the West was really as that degree of freedom to explore, freedom to ask questions, freedom to build on the shoulders of previous generations rather than having to reinvent stuff all over again every time. That sort of freedom did not exist in China, Russia, or the Ottomans. And what enabled it to do is that in the West, the law predated creation of states. In China and Russia, states predated law. So law never had the primacy in either China, and even today it doesn't, in either China, Russia, or Turkey, the way it had been in the West. So it's really the benefit of collapse of Roman Empire, the splintering of dioceses and states, the canon law and the primacy of civil law and other contractual laws, that really created a sort of a petri dish from which the West arose. And then you needed just to have a couple of turning points, a couple of critical junctions, which just accelerated the whole process a lot.